Hi, Acadiana. Meteorologist Dave Baker here on a Tuesday. Hopefully your day's going well. It's a hot one out here once again. We got a little bit of a wave that's right off the Gulf Coast that's going to provide parts of the region some decent rainfall today and tomorrow. Most of it's off over southeastern Louisiana right now, but later on I think we're probably going to be seeing a little bit more coverage of those showers and thunderstorms as we go through time. So before we get started, I want to look at some of our current conditions here. We're holding at 88 degrees. It feels more like 96 thanks to those dew points at 73, which actually isn't that bad as we go through the mid part of August. A lot of time those dew points will be running between 75 and 78, really making it soupy. In fact, we've got some higher upper 70s dew points that are out over southeastern Louisiana today, and a lot of rain coming in from the southeast as well. Humidity 63%. Winds are currently out of the northeast at around 5. So as we look at the radar here, locally we're in pretty good shape. We've just got a few showers that are starting to develop along the afternoon sea breeze there over parts of Cameron Parish. And we've also got some thunderstorms over southeastern Texas associated more with a bit of a trough. As we grab the radar out of Hammond, you can see that there's a lot more rain stretching along the Alabama and Mississippi Gulf Coast, and that extends over southeastern Louisiana. And we're going to see some more action starting to develop a little bit farther to the west here over the next several hours. So here in Acadiana, I think if you're there over the far western sections, you may catch some of those thunderstorms from Texas, and if you live in the southeastern sections, we'll be catching more of that rain coming in from this trough that's right along the northern Gulf Coast. So outside right now here locally, we've got a mix of sun and clouds, so not too bad. Traveling along the I-10 and the I-49 looking okay this afternoon. And as far as our tropical weather outlook, 96L has been dropped from the list. Still have a little bit of a circulation there southeast of Nova Scotia that's being monitored, but doesn't really have much of a chance for any development. And then as you look there, right along the Gulf Coast, you've got that yellow X that's there. That's part of that little tropical wave or inverted trough that we've been looking at. At this point, it does not have really any chance for tropical development, but it will be throwing some extra moisture at us, and that's why rainfall is in the forecast here over the next couple of days. And then, of course, you've got Tropical Storm Erin that's out in the Atlantic Ocean, rapidly making its way off toward the west, but it has not strengthened any since yesterday, but there is strengthening in the forecast, and it is still expected to become a major hurricane. Unfortunately, the track has shifted a little bit farther to the south. Not really a worry for us here along the Gulf Coast, and really not even a worry for the east coast of the U.S., but I would start to get a little more concerned there over the northern Caribbean islands, particularly the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and then getting over toward the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and into the Bahamas. But that's not in the crosshairs just yet. But we're going to look at those models coming up here in just a second. But I did want to focus a little bit on this trough that's over the northern Gulf Coast right now. As you can see, it's providing a lot of moisture there off the southeastern Louisiana coast. Unfortunately, most of the heavy rain has stayed in the offshore waters. I got some decent rains over parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida yesterday. And this trough is going to continue to kind of very, very slowly work its way off toward the west and eventually get into southeast Texas by the time we get into Thursday. So we're still seeing some dry air over much of Acadiana in this particular area, and I think that's kind of why the atmosphere has underperformed over the last couple of days. There's a lot of moisture at the surface, but aloft there's a little bit of some dryness there, so that might be what's inhibiting the showers and thunderstorms, because normally when you have a juicy atmosphere like this and you got a bit of a trough of low pressure in the upper levels, things are usually pretty unstable and you get these showers and thunderstorms going, so that little layer of dry air may be inhibiting some of the rainfall forecast. But I'm still going to go with 60% on the coverage today, even though it really underperformed out there yesterday. And as far as some of that rain, remember when you got a lot of tropical moisture out there, even though it might not rain everywhere, any of these thunderstorms that do develop could produce locally heavy rain because the atmosphere is so juicy. There's just a lot of moisture to work with. So most of the Acadiana region is in a level 1 marginal risk for flooding today. I would say that this is going to be more likely over the parishes that border the coast and the border of the Atchafalaya Basin. And then as this wave or inverted trough kind of moves a little farther to the west, most of the Acadiana region will be under the gun for a marginal risk of flooding. And most of this is going to be individual type of thunderstorms that dump locally heavy rain, and then you get that quick street flooding. You know where those happen, where that situation happens, but it doesn't happen everywhere. So you might end up getting a big thunderstorm that might, let's say here in Lafayette, flood Ambassador, Caffrey, and Johnston, but if you're up on near the I-10 corridor, it's not even raining at all. So again, it's going to be kind of scattered on there, but there will be some pockets of heavy rain. So be on the lookout for that, and at least just kind of expect some of that over the next couple of days. As far as the boating, not too bad out there, although the winds and seas are higher on the east side of that wave a bit, but locally, our waves are running about 1 to 2 feet, and our seas, or rather our winds, are running about 10 to 15 knots, variable on those winds. So not really any uniform direction here locally. Gorgeous day over in Panama City Beach there on the east side of that trough. They got some decent breezes coming in there from the south. And then you can see those tropical skies there along the coast of Alabama in Orange Beach. And there have been some rain showers over around Dauphin Island this afternoon. And even some gray skies now over Cocotree. This is the camera looking south, so we're kind of looking out into the Gulf waters. There's a lot of moisture out there. And then farther off toward the west, some of this moisture has not quite made its way all the way to the Galveston area, so a little bit more sunshine there as you work your way off toward the west. Central American satellite got a little bit of a tropical wave that's rolling inland. We looked at this yesterday, and that's still providing some showers, some thunderstorms there to Honduras and Nicaragua. And some of that's going to work its way across the Yucatan, but I think most of the energy is going to stay down to the south. So right now, that could actually have more of a potential once it gets over in the Pacific. The rest of the Caribbean is relatively quiet, although, as I said earlier, folks that live in Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and some of the northern Leeward Islands really do need to pay attention to what is out there with Tropical Storm Erin. And the reason is because some of the forecasts are a little bit farther to the south there, and you can clearly see where we have Tropical Storm Erin. It is right here in the middle part of the Atlantic. It has not had a lot of new convection over the course of the day today, but it's still a 45 mile per hour low pressure area, tropical storm. The pressure up just a little bit from where it was yesterday, but over the next couple of days, it's going to move into a relatively favorable area for additional development. So at this point, the official National Hurricane Center's forecast brings us up to a hurricane within a couple of days and maybe into a major hurricane. And unfortunately, that major hurricane forecast is so much closer to those northern islands there in the Caribbean. There's a closer look. Again, you've got the center of circulation that's rotating there nicely. It's got a good form, but there's just not a lot of thunderstorm activity associated with it right now. We'll have to wait and see what happens here over the next 24 hours, but I do bet that we're going to see some more convection around the center that will wrap around, and then that will protect the core. And at this point, there's really not a whole lot of shear affecting that. So around the core, if we can get those thunderstorms going, then you're going to start to see some intensification here over the next couple of days. Here's the official National Hurricane Center forecast. And one of the things I wanted to point out here is that yesterday, again, the cone is still relatively thin based on some of the confidence in the forecast, but you see now that the cone kind of impedes there on Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So again, that's the wiggle room. That's the margin of error. And again, with this final plot here being a major hurricane, that would be something to be at least be concerning there for our friends that live out there in the northern Caribbean. I'm sure they're getting ready for this as it continues to move off toward the west. But Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, northern Leeward Islands, and then areas over there toward Haiti and the Dominican Republic and the southeastern Bahamas really should be keeping a close eye on this over the next couple of days. And the intensity guidance is pretty uniform too. Most of the models are going with a hurricane. You still have a handful that have some slightly slower intensification where it doesn't become a hurricane until maybe 5 days from now. But a lot of our tropical models right now are indicating that we're going to crack that hurricane status here somewhere between 60 and 72 hours. So about 2.5 to 3 days. So I think by Thursday, if these forecasts come together, we'll probably be talking about Hurricane Erin rather than Tropical Storm Erin. So there's the models. Now these are just the individual models and show their individual track. Remember, these deterministic models just show one particular solution. And part of the reason why meteorologists are a little bit more confident in the forecast here for at least the next maybe 3 to 4 days is you see how all those lines are kind of jumbled together. So with that kind of an agreement, that's kind of helps you base your forecast, and that includes the National Hurricane Center. But then as you get out here, you see a little bit more of a spread. Not a huge spread compared to what we would see with most tropical systems, but definitely a spread that is there. So looking at the ensemble models, again, you see how everything, again, to explain what the ensemble model is, compared to what deterministic is. These model runs here, these are the deterministic. This is what they forecast will happen. And that's it. There's no wiggle room whatsoever. So if one point on that forecast goes bad, let's say maybe in 24 hours, then what could happen is that could end up messing up the forecast for the remainder of the thing. So when you have these deterministic models, it just is basically saying it is going to do this, and there's no other option here. While the ensemble models are a little bit different. It's the exact same model being run over and over and over again from the same starting point, but throughout the calculation process, it's kind of thrown some little curveballs here and there. So rather than having just one line that says it's going to do this, you get several lines. So what you have is a whole bunch of what ifs that could happen. And when you're looking at the initial part of the ensemble models, you see that all this over here, all those lines are pretty much right on top of each other. So there's good forecast confidence there that even if you throw in some curveballs, the forecast doesn't change a lot. But always as you get much farther out, especially in time, so out beyond that line right there, we're talking about beyond 5 days. And a lot of things can change within 5 days. So these what ifs, you get a little bit more of a spread. But the fortunate thing is these still look like they're going to be curving away from the U.S. East Coast. The bad news is some of these lines are just sneaking their way too close for comfort when it comes to the northern part of the Caribbean. Euro models, very, very similar, but also I want you to just kind of check out that 5-6 day forecast, which is right in this particular area here. See how some of those lines are starting to impede on the northern portion of the Caribbean. Still, most of the U.S. East Coast is safe with a curve going around a big ridge of high pressure that's going to be out here in the middle part of the Atlantic. Not completely out of the woods, but I would say it's a lot safer than what we saw, let's say, earlier this weekend and on Monday as well. But again, I'd be a little bit more concerned down here over the northern part of the Caribbean because these tropical systems, as they work their way westward, can still be affected by this ridge of high pressure. And rather than making more of a northwesterly turn, if it's on the bottom of that ridge there, it's just basically going to be going off straight to the west. So that's why I think the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center is now starting to impede on the northern part of the Caribbean Sea. Looking at the four models, we'll just go through the deterministic models here and just kind of give you their solutions real quick. And this is the Euro from earlier. And you can see the low right there in the middle part of the Atlantic Ocean. We'll just kind of advance it here a little bit. And the Euro has some strengthening, but really not for the next couple of days. It really starts to pick up a little bit more as we get into this weekend. So this is the map I'm stopping here for Sunday, and you can see again that is really close to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. It's a miss, but it's close enough that it would bring some rains and also some rough seas around those areas and probably some rougher waves and maybe some coastal erosion there for some of the smaller islands there that really don't have a whole lot of elevation. And then as we go beyond that 10-day forecast, so there's 10 days out right about there, you can see that it's making that curve, which would, bring a sigh of relief to our friends that live there on the East Coast. And then, of course, it gets caught up in the westerlies and then just kind of yanked back out to sea. So let's go ahead and see what the GFS does. And the GFS is very similar. There's the low moving across the Atlantic. And then you see, again, very, very close to the Virgin Islands, Northern Leeward Islands, and toward Puerto Rico. But a little bit faster of a curve, and then keeping it much farther away from the U.S. East Coast too. And now this is going out here. By the time we get to the 10-day period, this is a lot faster than what the euro was showing. So if you look here, we're at 234 on the hour. So we're just under 10 days. And if you remember what we were looking at with the euro model, at 10 days, it had a system maybe over here. So there's still a big difference even going out 10 days. And of course, even more of a difference as you go out farther than that. Let's rewind and we'll go with the Canadian model. Again, there's your low moving across the Atlantic, very close to the Northern Leeward Islands. Not quite as strong as what the euro and the GFS were predicting, but it does show that big curve around the ridge of high pressure and then caught up in the westerlies. Also notice, though, there are a couple of other lows that are coming off the African coast. Not only is the Canadian model and also the Icon model, which is this one right here, and again, you see that low moving across. Now, the Icon only goes out 7 days, and you can see that the storm looks to be fairly strong there north of the Caribbean islands, and then maybe deepening a little bit more as it gets back toward the United States. But you also notice there are a couple of other low pressure centers that are out there. But remember, the Icon likes to pretty much develop just about anything that comes off the African coast during this time of the year. So not really surprising that we're seeing additional development based on that particular computer model. So the water temperatures will be able to sustain any tropical weather very easily. One of the things I'm still concerned about is any tropical system over the course of this year that falls within that red circle, particularly the areas of the Caribbean south of Cuba and over toward Jamaica. If something goes over that and taps into that heat content, you could get some rapid intensification real quick. So hopefully whatever happens with Tropical Storm Erin, or what may be Hurricane Erin, hopefully it bypasses that circle, and then we won't have that premium fuel for Erin to use. There's still quite a bit of shear, and Erin is still in a fairly high shear environment at this point in time, even though it doesn't really show up a whole lot on the satellite imagery. But back here, as you go in that forecast track, there's a lot of areas where we've got some low wind shear. So as long as it maintains itself in those kind of conditions, that's why we think we could see some strengthening here as it gets a little bit closer to the Leeward and Windward Islands. There is a lot of Saharan dust, but there's really not a whole lot right around that center of where Erin is. And all of this is going to be moving in tandem off toward the west. So with some of the Saharan dust being reduced a little bit, that would be less of an inhibiting factor for development. So I do think what we're looking at with this tropical system is maybe some slow development over the next couple of days, and then maybe picking up a little bit more speed as we go into days 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook, this is kind of an extension of our 7-day outlook that we get from the National Hurricane Center. This is the one that was from last Tuesday. Going to get another update on this today, so I'll be able to bring this to you tomorrow. But you look at that week 2, which was released last week, which is now we're kind of falling into this starting tomorrow. And of course, right now, this one was right. We've got Erin that's basically going to pass very, very close to that area. And remember, this was put out about a week ago, so this was well ahead of anything that we were seeing with Erin during the early part of last week. And then week 3 still has some action there over the central part of the Atlantic. We'll have to see what the Global Tropics Hazard Outlook looks like as we go into tomorrow. I did want to, real quick before I leave you, point out that we are a little bit ahead of schedule, but yet at the same time a little bit behind schedule. So this is what we normally look at with the progress of the season, and we are on our 5th named storm right now, and usually you don't get your 5th named storm until August the 22nd. So we're about 10 days ahead on that. But yesterday, we passed the deadline, or at least on average, of where we would normally see our first hurricane. I still think we're going to see a hurricane here within the next couple of days, so we're really not going to be that far behind schedule. But the first major hurricane usually erupts by the time we reach September the 1st, so could Erin be our first major hurricane and put us ahead of schedule in all three categories here in the next couple of days. We are still expecting a busy hurricane season, just a little bit above average. The average is about 14 named storms, and most of the forecasts have been somewhere in that 16 to 17 range. So we've got 5 under our belt, and remember, about 70% of the hurricane season happens after August 1st. So things are going to be getting busy here over the next several days and the next several weeks. So make sure you've got the supplies you need right now while everything is quiet. Well, I hope you enjoy Let's Talk Tropics. If you do like this video, subscribe to my channel and also turn on those notifications. Remember, you can hear my forecast daily on Big 102.1, Planet Radio 106.7, and Freedom 95.1. Also follow my social media pages, both on Facebook and X. That's where I'm putting the updates on Tropical Storm Erin. They come every 6 hours while we don't have any tropical warnings that are out there. So 4 o'clock, 10 o'clock is when you'll see those updates. And then when anybody goes under a tropical storm warning or watch, then you start to get those updates every 3 hours. But go ahead and follow those pages. And a big thanks to everyone who subscribed to Acadiana Weather Today. Hope you all have a great Tuesday. I will see you tomorrow morning for Acadiana Weather Today at 7 o'clock right here on YouTube. Have a good one.